Hello, my name is Candice Scott, and today we're going to dive into really focusing on three things that you can start doing today to really help your core get stronger. Now, if you are here, you are probably either someone who you feel like your core has just never been your strong point. Maybe you just can't, for the life of you, you've done so many different, you've done planks, crunches, all the different things. You do a lot of workouts, but your core just still doesn't feel like it's strong like it should be. Maybe you have a lot of back pain. Maybe you are postpartum, or you are thinking about getting pregnant. Regardless if you're postpartum a couple weeks, months, or years, this can still be beneficial to you. So if you do not know who I am, my name, like I said, is Candice Scott. I'm a personal trainer. I've been in the industry helping women for over 10 years, which is kind of crazy to believe. And I am specialized in or certified in pre and postnatal corrective exercise. And I primarily now work with women not only in that area, but also just helping them rebuild their or kind of vamp their metabolism to where they start seeing results again. And that, along with core strength, strength training, all of that good stuff, just helping women find lasting results. So, with that, though, I am myself about 5 months postpartum right now as I'm recording this. So I'm right in the thick of it too. And I have been there. I know what your body goes through, and it's a lot when you're pregnant. But bringing everything kind of back together is the goal, right? So you're even better than before. And this is going to help you kind of get a kickstart on that if you are in that place, or like I said, if you are any of those other people, if you are just looking to really get your core strong like it should be and work from the inside out. So the first thing that I want to dive into is really kind of about your core. So things you may not realize, you may know some of this, you may not, but why it is so important to just our overall health and also just how we ultimately the results, lack of results that we get, why we need to focus on our core first. And how that can really play into every area of our life and make things that much better. So, the first thing let's talk about is the foundation. Your core is your foundation for movement, and that is because your deep core muscles, even the ones on the outer core, they support your spine and your pelvis. So they really are what stabilize it in regards, both of those things in regards to how you move. So when you bend, when you sit down, when you rotate, that your core is doing work in making sure that your spine and stuff stays kind of in line, right? So you don't fall over, so you are able to do things and not get injured. Now, when our core is not doing its job, when it's those deep muscles are not strong enough, then other muscles will take over. So that's where we get back injury. That's where we get really bad neck pain or shoulder pain. That's where you might have some hip pain going on or knee pain. A lot of this can all be related to literally a weak core. And that's because when our body is one big kinetic chain. So if one thing is off, it can escalate up and down our body to where other things get kind of off and the wrong muscles do their job. So if one muscle isn't doing their job, you've got to realize that another muscle is going to take over for that. Hence why a lot of times if you have feet, well, if you have feet, your feet can kind of fall in at times, or you might naturally walk out well or point out when you walk. And if that is the case, or when you're running, if your gait is kind of off or more pronated, supinated, that sort of thing, it can lead to your knees turning one way or the other based on the direction of your foot or how that impact is. And that your knee turning one way, like it's internally rotating, can put pressure on your hips, those deep inner thigh muscles. And then that can escalate up to where your core is kind of pulling in the wrong way, your pelvic floor. And that can escalate to your shoulders because your pelvis is getting pulled a certain way. So then your spine gets pulled a certain way. So then your shoulder kind of turns in, or you just round your shoulders more, your head is forward, those sort of things, right? So you've got to realize that your body will make things work. But that means overcompensation a lot of times. And that is not what we want. We want the right muscles to do their job, the right muscles to get turned on when we're walking, when we're running, when we're squatting, when we're picking something up, when we're twisting to put something away. All of that stuff matters. And if our core is not strong, then that is going to, those overcompensation things are going to happen, and that's where injury occurs. So if we can start with our core, get it strong, especially those deep inner core muscles first, so then when you're breathing, when you're moving, they're stabilizing in the right ways, then you're less likely to get injured in other places. On top of that, you're going to get better results because your glutes may not be as tight or overworked, or your quads might not be as tight and overworked, so your glutes can actually do their job. And so you can get them stronger, bigger, more toned. You can get leaner because you can put more muscle, build more muscle mass, because your muscles are able to get recruited in the right way with the right things. So it's the foundation, so it matters. Posture and back health is another thing that's super important, which I kind of just talked about. But if you think about, especially like with posture, ribs over hips, you always want to keep your ribs pretty much over your hip bones. If you feel that one is more out than the other, then you know things are off, especially in that postpartum period. This is something, because naturally when you're pregnant, your body just kind of, you start getting that anterior tilt in your pelvis, which just naturally happens because you have a baby in the front, right? That's pulling your body forward, your hips forward. So getting back to where really focusing on your posture, getting everything realigned is huge, because it will definitely help you in the long run. And this can also kind of play into like pelvic floor health, things like that, like incontinence even can be due to poor posture, and then the results of poor posture into pelvic floor imbalances. So that's something to think about. And then improved breathing. So this is something that I think, if you've done any sort of research, or you've kind of gotten into if you've done yoga, if you've done any sort of core work in the past, you know that deep breathing is something that's important, because it helps engage those deep inner core muscles using your diaphragm like you should. But it's super important because your diaphragm is really something that in today's society isn't used or utilized as it should be. Our diaphragm plays a vital role in breathing. So when we really are able to engage our core properly, use to where it moves with our diaphragm in a sense, then we can increase and enhance our oxygen intake. We are able to release a lot of the tension in our traps and shoulders from those shallow breathing patterns that we tend to have. And this can play a big role when you're pregnant and postpartum too, but also when you're doing any sort of physical activity, because you're going to be able to get more oxygen in your lungs, pull in more oxygen, which means more oxygen to your blood and everything. So, into your cells. So it's super important to focus on deep breathing, so, or improved breathing. So your core plays a vital role in that. So those are three things that you may not have realized are so important with your core, or kind of big things that your core does. But now let's get into kind of really what this is about, right? So what you can really start doing today to help strengthen your core. So first things first, we're going to get into diaphragmatic breathing. So again, talking about your diaphragm, and I just kind of talked about how improved breathing is a benefit of strengthening your core. So let's talk about your diaphragm in case you don't know. So your diaphragm is basically what helps pull air into the lungs. It's a muscle, but it works with your core. So it's kind of in an inverse in a sense. So when you inhale, it pulls down and pulls air in. So we want to, when we inhale, that's really where you want to think about expanding, doing that big 360 breathing. So something I like to do is placing your hands on like each side of your ribs, right? So I'm kind of like this here. And I'm going to link, there's a video, should be kind of right here, where I kind of go way into this even more. But inhale, and you want to really feel your back and your ribs expand when you inhale. And then when you exhale, you feel it all come in together. So when you're inhaling, again, you're expanding, you're relaxing all these muscles, and you're filling the diaphragm, filling your belly with air in a sense, relaxing your core, relaxing your pelvic floor. But then when you exhale is when you start kind of from the bottom up. So you exhale all that air out, but you're starting from your pelvic floor, contracting. Then those deep inner core muscles, those deep lower TAs, middle TAs, which are your transverse abdominis, which kind of wrap the spine itself, and then you're engaging those upper as you're exhaling all that air out. So you inhale, expand, let that air kind of go down, fill everything up, exhale, push it all out from the bottom up. So it's a slow inhale, slow exhale. You don't want to just like, because that's going to engage up here. You want to inhale and exhale from the bottom up. And when you do, you should think about pulling your hip bones together too as you're exhaling. So if you can start, you think about engaging your pelvic floor, not your glutes, your pelvic floor, there's a difference. And then your lower TAs, which are those lower transverse abdominal muscles, those deep lower abs. But then when you do that, as you're exhaling, you're trying to pull those hip points together a little more, a little more, a little more, a little more, a little more as you exhale. And then inhale and expand and release it all the way down to the pelvic floor. Now, this is not something that I expect you to be able to do right away, but the more you consciously, especially if you start like laying on your back doing this, or even leaning up against a chair, it can really help you. The more you do it, the more you're going to feel the benefits of it throughout day-to-day life. So you're going to just, your body will naturally start to breathe more like that. And that's essentially how our body's made to breathe. But we just naturally, because of stress, because of everything else, we're shallow breathers. So we start holding everything, breathe through our chest, exhale through our chest. And that's not engaging the diaphragm, not engaging the core, and in turning all these muscles. We talked about muscle imbalances, well, or overcompensating. That's where a lot of this tension comes from. So you just start keeping these muscles turned on when in a sense they shouldn't be doing any of the work anyways. When it comes to breathing, they should be doing other things. So deep breathing, diaphragmatic breathing is the first thing you can do. I say if you can start just like a minute or two a day, or when you're in the car even, it's a great time to do it. In bed, in the car, just when you have a chance to really feel and just concentrate. Obviously, don't close your eyes if you're driving, but it's a great way too, because it also kind of turns on that parasympathetic nervous system to where your body is relaxing and you're really getting oxygen to all those cells. The second thing to learn, or that you can start doing today, is learning how to breathe under a brace. Now, we just kind of were talking about really inhaling, exhaling all that air out. But if you are to breathe under a brace, this is more for like when you are really moving, when you are doing exercise, anything like that, you are going to keep your core slightly braced. Now, this is not the same thing as sucking in. Sucking in, you're like holding everything in and you're all tense. See how my neck even moves? But when you are breathing under a brace, you're still breathing, just not, you're keeping your lower TAs and like middle TAs connected as you do. So you can still feel some expansion through your ribs when you're inhaling and exhaling, but the bottom part isn't moving. So how do you do this? Well, once you kind of get good, or do get a somewhat feel for how to breathe, engage everything from the top to bottom. So just hold it. So your inhale, let everything out. Exhale, those where we talked about the hips kind of coming towards one another, kind of maintain that. And inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. And you should feel your core go flat. You shouldn't have any coning or doming or anything like that, any pressure outward. Everything should be tight in a sense. Does that mean like you're automatically gonna, it may not be tight because you may still have some fat there. We've all got body fat. It's fine. But you should know the difference between feeling like some coning or pressure versus just really staying connected in those lower abs. And that's what you work towards. So try like a 30-second hold first. So you inhale, exhale, and then you're contracted, braced, but you're breathing. Like I'm braced right now while I'm talking, but I'm able to breathe, right? Now I'm not doing a full release, obviously, like all the way to the pelvic floor, but I'm keeping everything for the most part engaged. And that is what can really help protect you in a sense as you are working out, when you start using a load or squatting with some weights, doing a chest press with some weights, whatever it might be that you're doing, or even running again. Now, when you're running, obviously you're not going to keep a full brace the whole time, but if you can just get your core, this naturally will help get your core to start supporting your spine and your pelvis more. And as you do that, less injury occurs, because again, they're going to start doing their job so your glutes can start doing its real job and not be over tight and not be doing too much, or your quads on the front of your legs. A lot of us are quad dominant, our glutes just won't turn on. Well, this can be a way to help that, because you're going to allow your body to get into better posture. You're going to allow your breathing to improve and your core to really start supporting your pelvis and your spine. So when you do that, you can move better. And when you can move better, you can recruit the right muscles better. And I feel like I'm saying that over and over, but it's because it's so important and something that so many of us just don't even realize, or that we miss throughout day-to-day life or while we're working out, because we're just kind of going through the motion of the exercise. We're not really thinking about what muscles are working, what we feel. But if we can slow it down and really focus on that for a little while, then your body will start to just pick up on what it to do naturally. All right, the third thing that you can start doing today is focusing on your posture. Now, I don't mean like having to sit tall, stick your boobs out, all that nonsense. No, I want you to place your hand like this, but put one hand on your ribs, one hand on your hip, or fingers on your hip bones. So just like that, and sit. When you stand, do this. See how they are. Are your hips out in front of your ribs? Are your ribs out in front of your hips? If they are, bring them to where they're stacked. This is just naturally going to help you get in alignment. And the more you can get into alignment, the better, because your body is going to start to naturally do that. So then when you're doing things throughout the day, you can't shift your hips one way if you're trying to keep everything stacked, right? So you've got to stand tall, and naturally it's something that we just don't pay attention to enough. But if we can do this and focus on breathing, we're golden. Our core is going to be so strong within a short period of time. These things seem so basic, but they make such a big result, or they bring such a big result and help us so much. And that's the biggest takeaway that I want you to get from this, is that our core can do so much for us in helping us feel better day to day. It can help us get better results in the gym. It can help us look more confident because we're standing taller. I mean, these things are so basic, but they matter. So that essentially, let's go over them again. What can you do today to start? You can work on that diaphragmatic breathing. I know I said that wrong, but I don't care. I can never pronounce the word. And learning how to engage your pelvic floor with that. And then fully release your pelvic floor. So it's not always just tight or turned on. You're not just doing Kegels, you're doing inhale, exhale. Learning how to kind of breathe under a brace. So keeping that core engaged when you do everyday things, when you move. In a sense, does that mean you need to walk around with it braced all day long? No, but when you're doing things like squatting or moving or rotating or things like that, that you pay attention to that. And then your posture, standing with your ribs right over those hips. You can start when you lay down too, making sure a lot of times when you lay, you don't realize you're shifting your weight one way or the other. So put your hands just like that and see where you're at. Those are 3 things that you can start doing today. And some things to think about if you want to take this to the next level, if you're really wanting to get your core stronger. I have a 12-week program, Core Restore and Metabolism program, that is coming out soon. So if you want to get on the list for that, for when it's released, to be sure that you're the first to know and take advantage of a big discount, then be sure to click the link below and get on the list. And I will let you know as soon as it is ready and we can get your core stronger. So you're feeling better, looking better, and all the things. All right. Thanks for joining me. Once again, I'm Candice Scott, and I'll see you soon.